This is the last time we're going to have numbers out of the swing states. It's a literal tie, 49-49, but almost as if Kayleigh mentioned, as if she was watching Kamala Harris going back to the economy, it seems, for the final message here.
Well, it's a smart move on her part because the economy over the course of that year has never faltered from being the top issue by a factor of at least 2. It is, in this month, it was the top issue of 36% of swing state voters. The next one down was immigration at 15%, and then it goes down beyond that. And the other two are reproductive rights at 12% and then democracy at 10%. And yet, for the last week or so, she has been focused on Donald Trump's anti-democratic, and I use small d there, sort of statements about, using the military and things like that, and his rambling sort of rallies and things like that. But what our poll also showed was that voters accept Donald Trump's personality. They accept his outlook on things, and yet they still trust him more to run the economy. So this ad of Harris's sort of brings that back, because when she talks about housing, when she talks about health care, her numbers in our monthly tracking poll tick up. So it's a good thing in these last few weeks to start reminding people that if she wants to win, that she does have an economic plan.
Yeah, well, as you point to more of the personality questions, Wendy, voters in the battleground states are more likely to see Harris as mentally fit, honest, and compassionate. Trump is dangerous and too old, and yet this thing, Saleha, is still a tie. And Wendy was talking about kind of the consistency with which the economy has been the #1 issue. The other thing that's incredibly consistent across our year of polls is the support for Donald Trump. It's never less than 47%, never more than 49%. There is a clear ceiling here. Can we say the same about Harris?
We don't know enough, right? She just joined in July. And so we're wondering now, has she hit her high water mark? Did she peak too soon for a Democratic Party win? I will say on the issue of the economy versus personality, if you are sitting in one of these swing states, you're not like us constantly thinking and talking about this. You're thinking about cost of living. You don't care about personality. If you like that, this person might be able to bring down your cost of living.
That's been a real lesson, of course. Yet we find as well a plurality of swing state voters, likely voters, believe Kamala Harris is going to win the election, even though we have a tied poll. There's something about voters trying to pick a winner, as we've seen in past elections. Does this play in Harris's favor?
Well, everyone's trying to pick a winner, right? We have prediction markets, betting markets, and markets themselves thinking they know exactly who's going to win. Polls have a coin toss.
People like to align themselves with the winner, though, right? If they see momentum, it can become attractive in itself.
Yeah, if you think you're about to go cast a vote and it's the winner anyway, you're like a bandwagon fan. And, hey, you helped the winner get in. Whereas if you see that the momentum is for someone else, if you're an undecided voter, don't have strong opinions, but have decided to vote, you could go for the other person.
So as we consider the kind of slate of issues here and where we're going to see these candidates over the course of the next week, tomorrow, they'll both be in Texas. Donald Trump talking about immigration, Harris talking about abortion. Next week, she'll be here in D.C. talking about democracy and calling back to January 6th. Whose argument is going to be able to resonate most based on the data we're seeing, Wendy?
That's really hard to tell. I mean, part of the reason she's in Texas is to boost Colin Allred, the Democratic Senate candidate, who is now in a dead heat with Senator Ted Cruz, the longtime Republican senator from that state. So that would help her, of course, if she became president and had a Democratic Senate. It's certainly in her interest to boost candidates like that. But also, Texas has some of the strongest restrictions on abortion of any state in the nation. And I think she knows, especially in a Democratic city like Houston, a diverse city like Houston, she is going to have a receptive audience, even if you're a Republican, to the notion of looser abortion rights than women in Texas have now. You know, Trump is also going to Madison Square Garden, not exactly a Republican stronghold. And, he's trying to make the case. Also, he knows that wherever he goes, he's going to get attention. So does she right now. So while it is important to do that retail politicking in the blue wall, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, we saw what happened to Hillary Clinton when she skipped some of those states. in the last month, but they will both get attention wherever they are.
Last evening, Kamala Harris had an audience on CNN, a town hall that we might remind ourselves is supposed to be a debate. Donald Trump never agreed to it, didn't like the venue, and so Kamala Harris got an hour of free airtime and had this to say when asked directly if she thinks Donald Trump, remembering the comments we heard yesterday from General John Kelly, if she thinks the former president is a fascist.
General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I also believe that the people who know him best on this subject should be trusted.
This is the headline that really came out of the town hall last evening, Saleha. Not a remark about the economy or controlling prices. It's back to this threat to democracy, much like Joe Biden was messaging when he was at the top of the ticket. This isn't effective based on our polling, is it?
No, I mean, it may have been in 2022 during the midterms when the red wave was blocked and not a lot of people saw that coming. And I know a lot of Democrats put that onto Biden's trip at the time to Philadelphia by the Liberty Bell or by Independence Hall to talk about democracy. Maybe that's the same ploy that she's making. It was also just the timing of it. John Kelly had come out with a statement. That's the most sensational thing that that she had said. Also, she has not talked a lot about the economy. Our editor-in-chief has interviewed Donald Trump on a big stage to talk about economic policy. She did not accept an invitation yet.
Just quickly before we go here, we've obviously talked extensively about Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. In many of these states that could decide the election, there are other choices on the ballot, like Jill Stein, Wendy. How should we be considering that effect?
Our poll showed that her getting less than 1% support. And that means in our poll of 4,900 people, that meant less than 100 people. I don't think she can tip the election. I understand that Arab American groups are sort of pushing Arab American voters and Muslim voters in Michigan to vote for Jill Stein to sort of spoil that because they're not happy with either Trump or Harris's positions on the war in Israel. But I don't think she's going to generate enough support. Remember, almost no one is undecided at this point. And 18, 20 million people have already voted.